When she kisses him, he remembers. It's as if his past lives come flooding back to him, much like when we remember who we are by knowing all is love. Welcome to another episode of TrueLove Talks. Today I wanted to talk about the 88 Gate, the Lion's Gate. Now, I'm not quite sure how much I can share about this because it does seem that it's a rite of passage in a way for you to figure out what the Lion's Gate is. Now, I did talk about it in my Back to the Future video, but there's more to it than that. There's more details. So I'll just explain my experience as much as I can. I tried to do this before today and was met with a lot of resistance from the system. So let's give it another shot. So back in August 8th, Olivia Newton-John died, and I didn't know very much about what the Lion's Gate portal was, what it meant, what the significance of it was. And the research that I did led me nowhere. It led me to realize that most people, well, pretty much everybody doesn't know what it is. So what I found were comments such as, it's a high energy portal, or it's a magical time to manifest, or it's a time where something to do with serious, and none of this matched up with the research that I did. Now, maybe it's part of the experience, but I don't think it has anything to do with the Lion's Gate personally. The Lion's Gate is the gate through which you pass when you are on your ascension path. And as I mentioned in the Back to the Future video, it is when the sun, or the Kundalini energy, the solar energy, in the middle, it's in the middle of the Mercury and Venus, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. When those line up, a light shoots up to the right hemisphere of the brain to enter into the fornix. So this is the research that I did, and on August 8th, when I was doing the Olivia Newton-John video, I found that on that date, the sun is in line with Mercury and Venus right in the middle. So at the time, I didn't know what that meant, but that is what it means. It has to do with the alchemical process, with the Kundalini energy rising within, and when it hits between the two glands. Around the time that I realized what the Lion's Gate was, I was decoding the movie Under the Silver Lake. This film was brought up in the Discord group on January 8th, which is 88. I watched it that very day, and it definitely struck a chord in me. Now, there were some synchronicities that happened in my own life that highlighted this event, because it was partly that film, but it was also in tandem with the Idaho murders that I was decoding at the time. And that happened in November, but it wasn't until January that I had all of the pieces to figure out what was being shown. And what also contributed to that was the Twitch event. And Twitch, I think, happened in December, towards the end of December. So on the 8th of every month following August 8th, an event happened. The Queen died. There was the Crimean bridge blast, and then there was the FTX catastrophe. But in December, nothing really happened. And I was kind of waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. So that was kind of the end of it. And come January, the Lion's Gate event happened to me personally. So it was a very interesting combination of things that happened on the external and things that were happening on a personal level. And I've noticed that these stages that we go through in our awakening, they happen in stages, but they also happen on a multiple level, like multiple planes of existence simultaneously. It will happen to you biologically. It will happen to you psychologically, spiritually, and on the external. So when you pass a certain level in your awakening process, there are stages that you go through where you will have some sort of external street theater or ceremony happen to show you that you have passed this level, which is what I meant by it started to feel like a video game, because if you recall, some time ago I was relaying a story about how I was going for my walks and there were two young men coming my way from the opposite direction, and they looked identical. They were dressed identically, and they stopped precisely at the point in the sidewalk where the sidewalk was cordoned off, so I couldn't go off the sidewalk. And they parted ways and stood on either side of the sidewalk, and I had to walk between them. And that was indicative of me being on the middle pillar. Of course, I didn't really understand that at the time. I kind of sort of knew, but wasn't sure. Now looking back on it, because several other street theater events have happened in a very similar fashion, I now know what that was. So come January 8th, the revelation as to what the Lions Gate portal was and understanding what that meant caused an internal shift for me. There was something in that revelation, in that knowing, that affected me internally. It wasn't like a lightning bolt or anything, but it was like a lightning bolt of connection, of understanding. So when I went to decode the Under the Silver Lake, I felt like there was something special about that film. I was really able to see something in that film at a new level. And this is because the more you understand about the process, the more you understand about this Kundalini awakening and what happens within, but not just that, but the more you know, period, the more you know about this place, the more you know how everything is connected, obviously the more you see. And so it really allowed me to see a lot more in that film than I normally would. I mean, talking about it now kind of seems a little bit dumb, because obviously the more you know, the more you see. But I'm trying to get at that there was something extra going on. What I'm trying to get at is that the film itself had unlocked something in me. This has happened a few times before, in which a movie has unlocked a deeper level within me, and I didn't have to do anything or think of anything. It just simply triggered a deeper inner knowing by watching it. I knew that something significant had happened, but it wasn't until the next day, January 9th, that this was made clear to me with a fancy bit of street theater. I received a phone call from my super the next day on the 9th, and he doesn't usually call me, so I called him back. And he said that several of the cars in the parking lot had been broken into, but there was nothing broken or stolen or anything. And so I didn't really think much of it. And then later that day I went down to go shopping for groceries, and he happened to be in the parking lot, so he talked to me a bit about it. And I thought at the time that it was a little unusual, because he felt the need to explain certain things a little bit beyond what I thought was necessary to explain what had happened. But you know, sometimes people are just like that. So he showed me some footage that he had captured, because we have security cameras, and he told me that this crackhead, he's a known crackhead, had broken into our cars. He had tried all of them. I guess he was looking for loose change and somewhere to sit for a while. And the car next to mine is a white car. And he said he sat in that car for 12 minutes. And then he got in your car and he sat in there for 8 minutes. And my car is a black Mitsubishi Eclipse. It's a 2008. So I thought it was a little weird that he mentioned all of this stuff. Then I got in my car, and the song that was playing on the radio was Video Killed the Radio Star. And it was at the point in the song where the lyrics were, "In my mind and in my car, we can't rewind, we've gone too far." And I immediately knew that it was a message, and it was pertaining to the situation of the crackhead being in my car. And so I started putting the pieces together and realized that this was an external celebration, so to speak, or manifestation of the 88 gate. The crackhead got in my car at 2 a.m. and sat in my car for 8 minutes. So that's 2 8s. It happened on the 8th of January, 2023. So that's 2 8s. My car is an Eclipse. which is the two becoming one, the merging of the sun and moon, which has to happen. Crackhead means like a split mind, or Kraken, and at the time, Kraken was a pretty big message. So Kraken, cracked mind, split mind, and he's in my mind and in my car. So this is happening in my car, but it's also happening in my mind. And we can't rewind, we've gone too far. So this is the point. The 88 gate is the point at which there's no turning back. You get to the point where you reach Judgment Day, Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate decides whether you go back down or whether you proceed through. If you proceed through, you go through the 88 gate. If you go back down, you go back into mundane reality, and you kind of have to start over because you haven't been doing the work. And that was the moment that I explained in the Under the Silver Lake, was when Garfield goes into the cave with the king, the homeless king, and the homeless king is Pontius Pilate. He's not necessarily casting judgment, but he's asking you the question of like, why didn't you make it? What did you do wrong? And Garfield didn't know. And so Pontius Pilate, the homeless king, had to ask him, all right, well, why do you have dog biscuits in your pocket? So it prompted him to do some deeper digging so that he could figure out what he needed to work on. And he needed to work on the breakup and why that happened, and stop pitying himself and stop slacking and do the work, basically. So that's why he was let go, and that's why he couldn't see anymore. So they let him go. He had another chance. He was reincarnated. If you get to the point where you've come too far and you can't rewind, it means you've gone through the gate. You're not going back. You're going into the fornix. You're in the cave. You're awaiting ascension. This is the moment where you are waiting for your man finger to touch the finger of God. So yeah, like the lyrics to Video Killed the Radio Star are very telling. Video is the world in which we live, right? So I've said many times we live in a TV screen. This is the video part. And killing the radio star refers to, literal stars are frequency, but there's no visual to it. It's just an energy, it's a frequency. And here in the physical, we are able to put video to it. So if you've killed the radio star, you've cut yourself off from source, right? So you cut yourself off from the radio star, from who you really are. And you're focused on the physical existence. Okay, here's the lyrics for Video Killed the Radio Star. I heard you on my wireless back in 52. So 52 is omega in the head, and a wireless is just like, there's no wires, there's no technology, it's just in the ether. You receive messages in your head. Lying awake, intent at tuning in on you, well, that is meditation. You're tuning in, you're honing your attention and stopping thought, trying to listen. If I was young, it didn't stop you coming through. So that's a connection. You can hear source, you can hear God. They took the credit for your second symphony. They rewritten by machine and new technology. So we have all this new technology, and it's replicating the universe. The way that they've built computers replicates the way humans think, and the way that they've built televisions replicates how the universe works, and the internet replicates how the universe works. The technology is a replica of the real world. And now I understand the problems you can see. I met your children. What did you tell them? Video killed the radio star. Pictures came and broke your heart. And that's like I said, this world is formed out of heartbreak. Pictures came and broke your heart. So this world, first of all, is created out of heartbreak because when it was created, we wanted it to last forever, but it is a temporary world, and it breaks your heart because eventually the physical things pass. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong. And now we meet in an abandoned studio. We hear the playback, and it seems so long ago. And you remember the jingles used to go. You were the first one. You are the last one. Video killed the radio star. In my mind and in my car. We can't rewind. We've gone too far. Pictures came and broke your heart. Put the blame on VCR. You are a radio star. So I thought the lyrics were very telling and very interesting, and I never looked at that song in that context before, obviously, but that's essentially what it is saying. And when I see songs like this and find a deeper meaning to it, it's just mind-blowing to me that that's happened. Anyway, going back to the event that happened on the 8th of January, I wanted to emphasize as well that the time that my super called me ended up boiling down to 88. The time that I called him back was 2 5s. And then his phone number boiled down to 88. His name boiled down to 88. You know, there was so many 88s and 52s. Like, it was ridiculous. Those sorts of things are just part of the synchronicities, part of the signs and the symbols that they're showing, that this place is showing, to say, congratulations, you've passed through the gate. If you look at the stages of your awakening compared to the stages of the story that I've broken down multiple times in my decodes, that story plays out in the awakening process, which is the reverse of what happened for us to get here in the first place. I don't know how to explain this, but we have the appearance of things moving forward, but in actual fact, things are rewinding and going backwards and coming back to the beginning. You look at it in the sense of Back to the Future. Marty and Jennifer, they're the animus and anima, the male and female that are one at the beginning. And then they're separated by time. So Marty leaves her behind because she's left in the other world. There's part of her that is projected into this world, but that's for another story. But anyway, he leaves her behind. He goes into this new world where he has to do all of this work, which actually happens internally with Marty, which is why it's a dream. And so him uniting the father and the mother and getting them to fall in love has to do with his internal mother-father and his internal sun-moon, male-female, has to come together, and he has to realize why they were split in the first place. And he is also able to find himself in his parents. And in their coming together and in their union, he's reborn. So he becomes anew. I mean, this movie, yes, there's a lot of symbolism in it that I think was conscious, but I think there's a lot of symbolism in there that is not, it just naturally flowed as a result of knowing this information, but also the story itself is a star story, so it just naturally flowed and unfolded. And so a lot of the nuances and subtleties that are in there that aren't written, this is what I was talking about before about reading between the lines. It's the stuff that's between the lines that nobody wrote, that you can't write, you can't write it, and the actors can't see it, and so they just naturally do it. It naturally unfolds and happens. It's invisible. It's like, it's intangible and it's invisible. It's the radio star coming through. So you can't orchestrate it. This is the divine energy that runs between everything. It's the zero. It's the true love. It's the heart of everything. It's source. It's God. Like, this is the stuff that I look for in decoding, because it's unalterable. No one can manipulate it. No man can change it. No man can adjust it. It is direct from the source. And this is why these events and these movies and songs and everything are all reflecting the same thing. The reason I brought it Back to the Future is because it's a prime example of how Marty coming into the world of the past, which is like, we're in the world of the past, so to speak. Him coming into the past in order to resolve something so he can go back to the future, which is actually the present, is the process that we're undergoing now. So him coming into 1955, he then has to go backwards and retrace his steps in order to get out of 1955, if you follow what I'm saying. The overall story of how we were created and how we came to be here is reflected in the history of mankind, obviously, yes, but also on a personal, individual level. And your job is to undo all of the mess that happened, to get back in time, to get back to 1985, to resolve that internal issue within you so you can go back to the beginning. Because the video that killed the radio star has to go. Like 1955, the video is only here for you to resolve your issues so you can go back and live the life you were meant to live. Live the life of your dreams. If you like this video, please show your support for my channel. Like, share, subscribe, comment, contribute. Contributions over $15 will receive a link to the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows material, so please be sure to include your email address. Kindly visit my website, subscribe to my backup channels, join the Discord group. All links are in the description box below. Thanks for listening. Hope you're having a great day. Bye for now.